Thank you very much, Bryn. So the cars lining up on the grid then for the second race of the weekend for the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. I'll rattle through the grid then. It is Jack Harding on pole position with Luke Herbert alongside, Steve Roberts and Aidan Hills on row number 2, with Patrick Fletcher and Will Stevenson sharing row 3. Jack Sycamore and Gary Townsend are next, then Nick Rutter and David Henderson, with Bradley Kent, Ray Worley making a welcome return, George Grant and Christopher Richardson at the back of the field. So this has been, I think, in my very unprofessional view, but I believe that this has been the most competitive season we've had in the MX-5 SuperCup for a long, long time. It is not the biggest grid we've ever had in the championship. We have had more race winners in a season before than we've had here this year so far, but the level of competition between Jack Harding, Luke Herbert and Aidan Hills has been sublime. All three of them almost identical on pace every single race, and they are all there on the front couple of rows of the grid. Jack Harding, runner-up in the championship last year, the white and red number 43 car lining up on the pole position, launches off the line, and we get set to go racing for 20 minutes in the MX-5 SuperCup. Who gets the best run towards the first corner? Luke Herbert, I think, has his nose in front from the outside of row number 1, and he will be determined to try and get into the first corner first, but Jack Harding was never going to let that happen and sized through into the race lead, runs a bit wide, but hangs on to the advantage. Herbert in second place, Steve Roberts is third, with Aidan Hills fourth, and Patrick Fletcher, who was really strong yesterday, running in fifth place again in the early stages. Championship-wise, coming into this weekend, by the way, Herbert had a 8-point lead over Jack Harding, but in yesterday's race, Harding won and Herbert was fourth. Herbert did set the fastest lap of the race though, so only actually lost 2 points to his big title rival, who he is now trying to go around the outside of down at Tower Corner on the opening lap of the race. Can't quite do it though, and he ends up on the dirt, and this could be Steve Roberts' opportunity to go into second position. That was not really what Luke Herbert needed to be doing on the opening lap of the race, and yeah, look at that, Roberts does go through, and perhaps more importantly, Aidan Hills is now alongside as well for third position, and Luke Herbert, NASCAR style, finds himself on the wrong side of the road and losing ground, but then immediately goes from the outside to the inside of Aidan Hills at Sunny, and that was a near mirror image of the move that Hills pulled on Herbert late on in yesterday's race to take second place away. So that was 1-1 now, as far as those two are concerned, with their late breaking efforts into Sunny in. So the order is Harding, Roberts, for Herbert and Hills third and fourth. The point I was about to make is that yesterday Jack Harding scored 100 points for a race victory. Luke Herbert scored 96 points for finishing third, but 2 points for the fastest lap. So what was an 8-point advantage is now a 6-point advantage for Luke Herbert. Aidan Hills, meanwhile, finished in second position, also scored 98 points, so he will also take 2 points out of the championship leader, but that's before you start taking drop scores into the equation, and they drop their worst couple of scores over the season, so that will change things when we get towards the end of the year, but it is remarkably tight between those three. Steve Roberts is mathematically still in championship contention, the white car that runs in second place at the moment, but really could do with getting a couple of race wins under his belt. Very quick racer is Steve Roberts, but maybe a little inconsistent compared with the big three in the championship that we keep seeing racing at the front. But he is running in second place at the moment. Luke Herbert there in third. Now, he was determined to get past Harding on the opening lap, if at all possible, because in yesterday's race, Jack Harding led, from pole position, led every lap, and won the race. Now, that doesn't really do the race justice because he never had more than a tenth or so's advantage over often 3 or 4 cars right in his wheel tracks. As Luke Herbert again tries this move up the inside into Sunny. He was just a car length or so too far back on that occasion. But yeah, once Harding got out in front yesterday, he was impossible to overtake. Partly because it was never just one car applying the pressure behind him, it was 2 or 3. And when you're in a gaggle of cars like that, unless you're at the very front or the very back, you're having to constantly attack and defend at the same time. And if you go for a move and it does not work, it can cost you. And that's exactly what happened to Luke Herbert yesterday. Luke, for the longest time, was running in second position all over Jack Harding, looked arguably a bit quicker than Jack, but every time he tried to duck out of line to make a move, that man there, Aidan Hills, number 8, was right behind him, waiting to take advantage, and eventually Aidan found himself on the inside line and was able to move through into second position. And it's that sort of racecraft that will often win you races in this championship, rather than just being the out-and-out fastest driver out there. You have to be able to pick your way through these big groups of cars that tend to run nose to tail for the entire duration of the race. Herbert, though, looking fairly quick here, looking like he might have something for Steve Roberts, and could really do with getting through. If things finish as they are now, that would be another 4-point swing in the favour of Jack Harding. and what is at the moment a 6-point deficit would become a 2-point deficit going into the final race of the weekend. So Herbert, that won't be lost on him. He will definitely be wanting to try and get back onto the coattails of the local man, Jack Harding. This is home circuit, a circuit therefore that he knows fairly well, but hasn't always had the best of luck here. But he's running well here today, that is for sure. All weekend, in fact, he's been running well. He was on pole position for the first race as well. The grid for this second race, based upon the second fastest time from qualifying. So his qualifying pace was good, but his race pace was strong as well. And whilst he wasn't able to escape in yesterday's race, and thus far hasn't been able to do so in this one either, he has been able to keep everybody behind him. And as Steve Roberts was having to defend from Luke Herbert there, we might see some shuffling on the this occasion through the complex, because Luke Herbert maybe is starting to get a bit impatient now. He knows that Aidan Hills is right behind him as well, and Aidan, because he's at the back of the queue, you can see my point there, he's able to take whatever line he chooses, knowing it won't put him under any pressure from the car behind. So he takes the wide line into the hairpin, cuts back to the late apex and draws alongside his teammate and good pal Luke Herbert. Down to Clervaux, he's on the outside line though. This is going to be a brave move to pull off, but he's done it. Aidan Hills drives around the outside of Luke Herbert down the straight. That was just superior traction out of the hairpin, and in cars that are not the most powerful or the most aerodynamic, an extra mile an hour or so on the exit of the corner can quite easily sometimes translate into a move made before you even reach the end of the straight. So Aidan Hills into third, and now if we threw the checkered flag, Jack Harding and Luke Herbert would be tied at the top of the championship table. So back through Tower Corner they go, along the straight towards Jim Clark S's. Can Aidan Hills now do what Luke Herbert's not been able to do so far and find a way past Steve Roberts? Well, Steve has actually been able to take advantage of that battling to pull away from them, and it could be that it's now or never for Steve. He will have, at best, half a lap before Aidan Hills and Luke Herbert arrive back on his rear bumper. Now is his opportunity, perhaps, to start building a challenge against Jack Harding. They're heading down to the complex now. This is definitely one of the best overtaking opportunities on the lap. But Jack Harding knows where to defend, so holds the inside line, and as soon as he defends for a corner or so they all start to join in the fun behind as well. So that little gap that these two have built up over Herbert and Hills behind all of a sudden disappears, and now Roberts goes to the outside but leaves the door open for Aidan Hills, and that's exactly the point I was making. You go for a move, it doesn't work, and you end up getting elbowed onto the grass and losing 2 places, because through goes Aidan Hills into second, through goes Luke Herbert into third, and Steve Roberts, spitting feathers now, sure, going down the pit straight, will be thinking, hang on, I was nearly in the lead then, and now I'm off the podium. Hills lost a bit of momentum with that rub as well coming off the corner, and so Herbert draws briefly alongside, but can't quite execute that same round the outside move into Clervaux that Hills made a lap ago. So, new order, still Harding leads, but now Aidan Hills is second, and Luke Herbert third, with Steve Roberts fourth, and in fifth position, Patrick Fletcher, who finished fourth yesterday, actually got the better of Steve Roberts in the late stages. And Patrick Fletcher, former frontrunner in Renault Clio Racing, making the move to Mazdas this season for the first time, and was immediately on the pace and looking for maybe a podium result this weekend. Luke Herbert looking for second place though, is alongside Aidan Hills down to the Jim Clark S's. This will be a test of their relationship, won't it? Side by side through the corner and into the high speed right hander at Barcroft, and Aidan Hills I think is going to lose out maybe 1 or maybe 2 places because he ends up on the dirt there and somehow keeps Steve Roberts at bay, or does he? Roberts is up the inside, can't quite do it though. And so Steve Roberts stays fourth, but Herbert now into second, and this is how quickly things can change. A lap or two ago, we were suspecting that maybe he was going to end up with, by losing a couple of points here to, or losing substantial points to Jack Harding. As it is, he ends up, well, for the time being at least, in second position and losing only 2 points to Steve Roberts now. He's seen how this is done and he's going to repay the favour now to Aidan Hills. He's up the inside. They avoid contact on this occasion, thankfully, but Aidan Hills is going to have some defending to do now. Down to Clervaux. Patrick Fletcher joining in the fun as well. Down into the first corner again. And over the curbs they will go. Very, very close indeed as they turn through the corner. There's Jack Sycamore, by the way, running in 6th position. Will Stevenson right behind him in 7th. These two had a good battle yesterday as well, which Stevenson actually came out on top of for 6th position. They're racing for 6th again now, but Jack Sycamore, whose pace is improving as the season goes on, so too, thankfully, is his fortune. And he is just outside the top 5 now. Then Gary Townsend is next, with David Henderson and Nick Rutter rounding out the top 10. Sycamore defending the inside into Tower. Don't think that Stevenson's going to be able to find a way through, is he? Not on the exit of the corner either. So the AB Motorsport car stays in front. Back with the leaders now then. For Croft, or the second place battle I should say actually, because Jack Harding has really been able to pull away now from the cars squabbling behind him, so it's looking good for a double race victory here for Jack. Having said that, we still have over half the race to go. Sycamore and Stevenson 6th and 7th go through, and then Townsend there in 8th place. But there you can see the gap that Harding has built up. It's not enormous, we're talking a second or so, but in MX-5 SuperCup terms that's pretty handy, and he is going to be tough to catch now, I think. Once you break the toe, once you break out of slipstreaming range in these cars, it can be difficult for the chasing pack to catch you, especially if they insist on knocking lumps out of each other, which these 4 drivers so far have been doing. Across the line they go. There you can see the gap. It's now just over a second, in fact, between the top 2. Down to Clervaux again. Herbert, Hills and Roberts, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. And it's Aiden Hills, really, who could do with some race wins. Oh, now that didn't look good. Aiden Hills just rattled over the curb there, out of Clervaux. And I think that was the under tray of his car, which was already dragging on the floor, which, well, let's look on the positive side. It's no longer dragging on the floor. That's because it's not there anymore. It's fallen off, I think. He's lost some of the under tray from the car. It's still flapping around a little bit, but that won't help the aerodynamics of that car one little bit. There you can see the bits and pieces that have been left strewn across the road down at Clervaux. And so Aiden Hills, who is flirting with danger there. I was about to say he's the one that really needs the points here, because he came into this weekend some 12 points off the championship lead, which was being held by Luke Herbert. And the 2 cars run out of the Rob Boston Racing awning. In fact, so too is the white car behind of Steve Roberts. So these 3 all running out of the same team, but all squabbling for championship points, because Roberts, he may be 48 points off the championship lead, but once you take the drop scores into account, that actually comes down slightly, and he is still a title contender if he can start winning races, and he's trying to do something about that now, as he had a peek to the inside of Aiden Hills there, but to no avail. We're into the second half of the race now as well, so time starting to run out now. The intensity level tends to start picking up as we go into the final third, and across the start-finish line they will go. Will Stevenson and Jack Sycamore still at battle. Sycamore still in front in the number 91 car, but the yellow machine of Stevenson has never been more than a Mazda length or so behind. Across the line, back towards Clervaux once again, and they are going to be side by side this time, with Sycamore defending the inside line. Hops over the curb. You can see, you have to feel for the tyres and the suspension and the drive shafts on these cars, don't you? Because they really do take a beating over those curves, particularly through the first sector, through Clervaux, and then here through the chicane as well. They're much more severe, those curves, than they look, and they're pushing each other out of the chicane now. That's taking bump drafting to the extreme. Now, we've seen drivers in the Mark 1 Championship for the MX-5s this year getting in trouble for excessive bump drafting. Not sure what the ruling is in SuperCup, but Will Stevenson definitely applying the bumper to the back of Jack Sycamore there. He's not trying to nerve him off the road, he's trying to push him down the straight so that they both go a bit quicker. It's a legitimate tactic, but something that perhaps they're trying to crack down on this year. Stevenson now, though, I think, not content with running in the wheel tracks of Jack Sycamore, is pulling alongside, and is going to make the move stick. Oh, they make side-to-side contact this time, which definitely is frowned upon, but Stevenson will go through, and he's now into 6th position, the 6th position which he occupied yesterday as well. So Stevenson back in front now. Sycamore down to 7th, but they're still ahead of Gary Townsend by an ever-increasing margin, who in turn has David Henderson still only a car length or so behind. Then I think Bradley Kent possibly ahead of Nick Rutter now. Just caught a glimpse in the background for 10th position. Jack Sycamore all arms and elbows there as he tries to manhandle the car through the middle part of the complex there. These 2 very evenly matched. I don't think Stevenson's going to escape, and has a slightly tardy exit from the hairpin, and so Sycamore may be able to draw back alongside, maybe. No, can't do it though, into Clervaux corner. So Sycamore then staying in behind Stevenson for now, but this battle I think will rage right to the checkered flag between these 2. Points-wise, by the way, Jack Sycamore 7th in the championship. Will Stevenson, though, had a disqualification from a race at Snetterton. Oh, Sycamore! What a save that was from Jack Sycamore! I thought for a moment he was heading for the tyre wall, like so many people have done in the past at that corner. But he, in the end, just bounces across the grass, does a bit of rally crossing and gets back on the road. But Jack Sycamore, for a very brief moment, his heart would have been well and truly in his mouth then. And he did really well to hang on to the slide. Right, back with our front runners then. Aidan Hill's third, but look at what's going on for the race lead. Luke Herbert has pulled away from the two cars behind and is now left free to attack Jack Harding for the race lead. So these are the top two in the championship. Harding really could do with beating Luke Herbert in this race. It's not going to be easily done though. Luke Herbert pulling alongside him now as they go down into the complex once again. Can't make it stick on the way in. What about the exit speed? Well, really, this part of the circuit, single file as well. It's all about the hairpin. You can make a move on the way in or on the way out. It's more likely to be on the way out, I think, because Harding defends the inside line. Can Herbert get better exit speed? No, he can't, and he knows that with every corner that Jack Harding defends, Aidan Hills and Steve Roberts get closer and closer behind. And as we move now towards the final quarter of this second race of the weekend, I think we're going to have a four-car scrap for the victory again. Luke Herbert, who has the fastest lap in this race again, by the way, so as things stand, he would score 98 points for finishing second, plus 2 for the fastest lap. That equals 100, even I can work that out. So 2 scoring 100 points, though, would be Jack Harding, because you score 100 for the victory. So if you finish second with fastest lap, you score the same amount of points as the race leader. What I'm saying is that this 6-point advantage that Herbert has would stay at 6 points if it finishes like it is now, but that may not be the case because Herbert's going to the outside again into Tower. Watch for the switchback manoeuvre. He's going to be quicker off the corner. Harding will try and cover it if he can, and he will, I think, just get over to the right hand side of the road to defend, but the intensity is really ratcheting up now into the final few laps of the race. Hills and Roberts are right back with them again now though, and so Herbert has to box clever. This is how he lost second place yesterday, because he became so preoccupied with getting past Jack Harding that he forgot all about Aidan Hills behind him. They're in danger of tripping over each other now as they go into Sunny. Steve Roberts goes to the outside as well, cuts back to the inside of Aidan Hills into the second part of the Sunny complex. No, Aidan is always going to close the door and just hangs on to third place. Don't count Patrick Fletcher out here as well. He could look into a podium finish if this continues in front of him. Generally speaking, these guys have kept it very clean so far this season, but as we get deeper into the season and every point starts to become more and more significant, the chance of something going wrong and a bit of contact being made starts to increase race by race. So back out of the final corner we go again then. This is spectacular racing we're enjoying here though. It's been a fairly calm race, but it's been a bit of a pressure cooker race, hasn't it really? The pressure's been building and building and building and building, and now we're into the final couple of laps and it's go time. It's time now to try and get these positions if you can. Easier said than done though when it's Jack Harding out in front, and Jack is one of the most difficult men to overtake in this championship. He knows exactly where to position the car, and he clearly has a fast car, but I think Herbert's car is a little bit quicker at this stage of the race. He was able to close down what was at one point over a 1 second advantage for Jack Harding, and he did so over the course of 3 laps or so. So Herbert, if he ever has free rein to attack Jack Harding without having to worry about what Aidan Hills is doing behind him, I think he might just have the speed to do this, but it's prizing that door open and making it stick that is not easy to do. 3 minutes to go then. Lapping in the 1 minute 36s, 37s at the moment, so we should have another couple of laps after this one. Good news for Luke Herbert, Aidan Hills, Steve Roberts and Patrick Fletcher. Not such good news for Jack Harding, because Jack would rather like to see the checkered flag, I think, because the pressure that he is under is building and building lap by lap. They're closing in again now, having dropped away a bit in the early part of this lap. Fans watching on then from the spectator banking here at the complex at Croft. Always produces a great vantage point, that. And you can see the part of the circuit at which a lot of the action tends to happen. Steve Roberts was so tempted there to go up the inside of Aidan Hills, but contact was almost inevitable if he'd have tried that. Backs out of it. Back across the line they go again. Right, 2 laps to go. Place your bets now, because it's still any one of 5 drivers who could take this, or certainly could get onto the podium. Harding, though, has led every lap so far this weekend, but never by a huge margin. By far the most comfortable he's been so far this weekend was over the first sort of 10 minutes or so of this race, but in the second half of it, it does appear that Luke Herbert is maybe slightly the quicker of the two. Steve Roberts has come on strong in the second half of the race as well, the white car in 4th position. Patrick Fletcher, a bit like we saw yesterday actually, he came on strong in the second half too. That's all down to car setup and particularly tyre pressures. If you set the pressures a bit lower at the start of the race, then you might be struggling a little bit for pace in the early stages, but then as you get to the end of the race, your tyres will hang on better, and you should in theory have superior pace towards the end. And as the temperature keeps rising now as well as the day goes on here at Croft, that is really quite important that you keep the tyres underneath you. by the end of the race. The sun's starting to come out now, the track temperature will be starting to rise. I think the temperature inside the cockpits is already reaching boiling point though, as they desperately try to find a way past Jack Harding, the race leader. So far it has not been working for them, and now Aidan Hills is coming under pressure from Steve Roberts. We're about to go on to the final lap though, so it's now or never really. If they've got anything for Harding, they're going to have to try and show it now. Harding is not going to give up the inside line, so Herbert, you sense, will probably have to force a mistake out of Jack, but despite going in on that tight line into the hairpin, Harding still seems to have superior traction off the corners, and again, that's probably a setup thing. He's got the car set up for the traction out of the slow corners, because most of the slow corners here lead onto quite long straights, and so if you get a good exit, you won't be under too much attack at the next corner. So it's a sensible strategy, that, but Jack, I still think, is going to have to defend come the end of this lap. We are on now the final lap of the race. What's been a very, very close encounter again for the Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. Jack Harding, Luke Herbert, Aidan Hills, Steve Roberts and Patrick Fletcher, the top five, and you can throw a handkerchief over the lot of them. And Harding really defending this time into Tower Corner. What does Aidan Hills do in third place? That could almost dictate who wins this race, really. If the man in third decides to really go on the attack to try and find a way past Luke Herbert, that will take the pressure off Jack Harding. But will Aidan decide to sit in behind Herbert, realising that maybe Luke might have a chance to open the door for both of them? He's really close, he's alongside, but that's the outside line into Barcroft. Watch for the switch back into Sunny, there's a gap on the inside, no, not quite, and Aidan Hills goes around the outside, they're all three of them into the corner together. Hills is sideways and he's thrown away a podium result. He was so late on the brakes, he was never going to get the car stopped, and Aidan Hills drops from third to fifth, and that, I think, is a move he may regret after this race. He can little afford to throw those sort of finishes away, and he's now well off the podium. It looks as though Jack Harding, though, in the AK Automotive run machine, has done enough to hang on to the victory. There's one more corner to go, but as long as he doesn't run too wide on the exit, I don't think Luke Herbert will be able to go through. The checkered flag awaits, and Jack Harding will take his second win of the weekend in the Mazda MX-5 Super Cup here at Croft. A phenomenal defensive drive once again. Luke Herbert takes second, Steve Roberts third. Fourth place goes to Patrick Fletcher to repeat his fourth place finish from yesterday, and rounding out the top five, a rather disappointed Aidan Hills, I would suspect. Will Stevenson comes home sixth, Jack Sycamore in seventh after his big moment at the chicane. Then Gary Townsend, David Henderson and Nick Rutter round out the top 10. But what a sensational battle that was between the leaders. You have to wonder what Aidan Hills was thinking there on the last... Oh, hang on, Sycamore... Now, Jack Sycamore has stopped and he's not made it to the checkered flag. So that is an odd place for him to stop. You'd have thought he would have made it into the pit lane if there was an issue, but he stopped right next to the pit lane entry, almost as if he's lining up to start the next race. Well, you can't race in the next race, Jack, because you don't have an Alfa Romeo or a Porsche, so you're going to have to get off the circuit, and that may take a little time between races because that car appears to have no power, but this car certainly had enough power. Jack Harding takes the race victory and extends his points margin, but, well, actually he doesn't extend his points margin, does he? Because Luke Herbert held on to second place and held on to the fastest lap, crucially, so it's still 6 points between them, but it was 0.3 of a second that separated them after 20 minutes of nose-to-tail racing. Harding with the victory, his second of the weekend at his home track. Luke Herbert is second. Steve Roberts comes home on the podium again, his first podium for a little while. Fourth place for Patrick Fletcher, and fifth, a disappointed fifth, for Aidan Hills. Will Stevenson is sixth, Gary Townsend seventh. David Henderson inherits eighth after Jack Sycamore's late retirement. Nick Rutter ninth, and Bradley Kent gets into the top 10. Likewise because of Jack Sycamore's demise on the final lap. Ray Worley is 11th. He finished 13th yesterday, so that's an improvement. George Grant 12th. Then Chris Richardson and Jack Sycamore the only retirement. Gary Townsend, by the way, leads the Masters contingent in that race for the drivers 45 years and over. And he is one of the front runners in the Masters Championship as well, coming into this weekend. The man from Rugby in the Townsend vehicle hire machine, so a self-run car, but a very professional outfit these days, that squad. So too, the AK Automotive team, Jack Harding, the winningest driver in MX-5 Super Cup history as well now. He managed to beat AK Automotive team leader Alan Henderson's record at Alton Park earlier on in the season, and continues to add victories to his tally. Another number one for Jack Harding, and he will now, well, he'll be a little disappointed, I think, not to have taken some points out of Luke Herbert, but at least he didn't lose any. And remember, race 3 later on is a reversed grid, and Jack is particularly good at those reverse grid races. Now, I wonder what Luke Herbert is talking about. I think there'll be a lot to talk about, particularly what went down on that final lap. I think they were all a little bit shocked at what Aidan Hills tried to do. He is very good on the brakes, but maybe not quite good enough to drive around the outside of everybody. Anyway, let's find out what they all thought, because down with our podium finishers, once again, is Bryn Lucas.
Well, you can see the drivers chatting there. Let's jump into race winner once again. Jack Harding, congratulations. That was another easy race for you.
Easy isn't the word. No, it was a little bit easier than yesterday at some times. I got a bit of a gap at a couple of points, but Luke and the guys behind kept catching back up. Like I said, the slipstream's quite big around here. But I knew Luke had fastest lap, so I saw his dad on sideline giving him the signal, so I knew he'd be equal on points, but you know, I needed to keep hold of that win massively. But yeah, the AK boys have done a brilliant job with the car overnight. It's absolutely awesome.
There's not much you can do when it comes to fastest lap and keep pushing, but as you say, your slipstream playing such a big part around Croft. It's such a straight circuit, got so many long straights here. It does help if you can get behind, but Aidan was pushing him and pushing and pushing. Not sure if you saw what happened there, but you two were going toe to toe. Aidan looked like he got it, then ran wide, and he ended up finishing a bit further back.
Yeah, I saw him coming around the outside, but I wasn't going to let anybody come around the outside, whether it be Luke or Aidan or anybody. So yeah, it was only going to go one way really. But yeah, no, like I said, to get the fastest lap, you need the tow, so I was never going to get the fastest lap. But yeah, massive thanks to Yorkshire Trade Windows and Townsend Vehicle Hire. Thank you.
And you've got one more race to go, so thoughts about that one if we look ahead?
Yeah, it's reverse grid, so it's the first time I'll be not at the front. So yeah, I just need to try and fight my way through, see what we can do. Need a podium, so we'll see what happens.
Attach a snowplow to the front maybe. Well done there to race winner. And we'll move on now to Luke Herbert, who pushed him all the way, but not quite enough.
Yeah, same scenario as yesterday. You know, Jack done very well in qualified to get double pole. Around here, if you can get in the lead when you've got a pack of 5 cars behind, it's going to be your race all day long. I managed to overtake Jack and Steve only because they had the same situation as me, trying to attack and defend. So, you know, I'm pleased with second in the quickest lap, so I equalised the points that Jack got. So bring on race 3 where finally I'll be ahead of him.
That's the thing, you can nullify the lead really by getting that fastest lap, and with tow, as we were talking about before we came over to you, it's so important around here. If you use the tow, you can nullify all the points gained in first place.
Yeah, I mean, because it's an airfield, it's very flat, you get a strong headwind. So yeah, I mean, it looks like you've got mega power, but if and you know, mega speed, but if it was roles reversed, Jack would look like he was massively quicker than me. So, you know, he drove a great race, he put the car exactly where he needed to put it. And yeah, just thanks to all my sponsors, SRC, Chichester Water, ACC Tyres, Become Wealth Management, for bringing me here. You know, it's great fun.
Well done, well done.
Cheers, thank you very much.
And let's go off to third place then. Unexpected third place maybe, but third place nonetheless. Steve Roberts. Now that was quite exciting. You got that at the end. I'm not sure how you got it, but you got it.
Yeah, got it. I think we all had similar pace. So, and Croft always creates very close racing. But if you try and go for a position in front, you always leave yourself vulnerable behind. And I unfortunately dropped back to fourth then. Got back to third, so I'm happy to have a podium. But RBR put a great car out. I felt like I had the pace to win it, but I think we all probably do.
Now, you got to see Aidan ahead of you, trying to go around the outside. Was that the moment you thought, I think he's going a bit too fast, carrying too much pace in there, here's my moment?
Well, to be honest, like I say, it's always a little bit of a lunge around Croft, so I was sitting in fourth, probably thinking about the third race, and thought, well, I'm probably not going to get the win here, so I'll probably take the starting position for the last one, but then the opportunity arose on the last lap through sunny and sunny out, and I've been the strongest through there all weekend, so I just took my chance.
Well, congratulations, third place.
Thank you.
There you go, top 3 from the Mazdas. They'll be back later on. Looking around, we've got more cars coming out on track. We've got Porsches and we've got Alphas, the small matter of the Alpha Porsche tussle. Andy, back to you.